hear me
I
through
love it.
my?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Yay.
So,
Thank you for coming.
I am so excited. I think it's so important to be having conversations like this. Like this is where the door opens for a lot of people to just
Yep.
talk about it. And yeah, I love being a part of it.
So we started our podcast like what, 8 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
We have had some of the most incredible people,
Yeah.
including yourself. The
Yeah.
fact that you guys even agreed to come.
Yeah.
Like
Of course.
we're just really honored because
Yeah.
I think people are just craving a space that they can feel seen in.
Yep.
And you obviously do that and you do it really, really well. And we just appreciate the time that this takes because we know you're busy.
Yeah.
So
Now I'll always say yes to an excuse to talk. So
yeah.
We will too.
Yay. That's exciting. So welcome to What the Body.
Welcome to What the Body. Everyone's going to be super excited today. We have the Alicia Mccarvell. Whoop, whoop, whoop. You
Thanks
got to
for
know
having
this.
me.
Yeah, you got to know that when we first went live on her TikTok and we were like, who do you guys want to see? It was like
you.
Alicia.
100%.
Was
I was like,
it? Oh
yes.
my God.
Yeah, it was really cool.
And
We're like, we'll try. I don't.
I already reached out to your people though. I was like, don't worry, it's in the works,
Yeah.
honey.
We're trying. So we do appreciate it. But you make such a huge impact in the world. You just hit 1 million on IG.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I know it's a huge milestone. So I think I downplayed it a little bit too much this time around. And like, so I'm planning something fun to celebrate. I think I was just nervous that like
Yeah.
numbers can fluctuate so much. And I try not to like celebrate numbers too much because I don't want to
Yeah.
be about that. But at the same
Absolutely.
time, I do want to be about that. Like the more people that are watching my platform, the more tolerance there are for those who are living in bigger bodies, the more
Yeah,
confidence
Absolutely.
those who are living in bigger bodies is getting. So it's hard to not celebrate the numbers because that just means more people are around, and that's a
Yeah.
pretty cool feeling.
We love
Yeah,
that.
I get that. I think like, having almost 6 million followers on TikTok and hitting 1 million on Instagram is fantastic. And it shows
It's a big deal.
people, you impact people. And I think I was telling Caitlin before this, I was like, I just feel like you're one of those people for me. I came across your platform when you just hit 2 million on TikTok and you were like so surprised and humble. And you're like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. You're like dancing in your coat. And I was like, these guys are cute.
Yeah.
And then whatever, I kept going. And then you just kept coming up. And I feel like when you cry, I cry. And like,
Yeah.
your family dog passing, I'm like, oh, I'm sending you pictures of my dog. And I'm like, I just feel like she's so relatable. And I
Yeah.
think like it's so empowering to have watched your journey. I'd love for you to summarize it for the listeners, but to watch you go from no bathing suit to like, I got all these bathing suits.
I'm feeling good. I'm gonna show
It's
myself.
so lovely to
Yes.
have watched.
We love that.
It's been like a very outrageous experience. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Like from going from, before this all happened, pre-platform, I had been working with a company. I lost my job. I was unemployed for 10 months on purpose. Like I took time for myself. I got back to creating. My sister got married that summer. I just did things for me. And like through that 10-month period, I really realized how much of my life I had given up to my job, how many things that I had not been a part of, and how many things I had to say no to. And prior to this, losing my job, I had this whole experience on a beach in Florida, and I'm sure you've heard that. Like that one of my videos went through, and it was just talking about how I got a bathing suit because nobody was going to know me in Florida. It had been 12 years since I had worn one to the beach, and my husband and I had what will be a core memory for me, and we just were in the water for like 2.5 hours playing like we were kids. And through that experience, we got back to where we were staying, and I just sobbed. I was just so disappointed and angry and upset and frustrated that I had been saying no to this, that I had been saying no to the most joy that I had experienced in a very long time, just because of my body. So when I lost my job and realized how many things I was saying no to because of my job, and it just was like I was tired. I wanted to be doing something that made me feel like I was having an impact on people.
Absolutely.
And when I started creating, this third video that I posted blew up, and it was that, like, it was meant to, not satire, it was meant to be humorous, because the trend was my boyfriend is 10 times hotter than me, check. And it was like a sound. And then after the sound would happen, it would be like a montage of photos of the couples, like comparable to one another. Meanwhile, like I'm searching through the sound, and these are like by beauty standards, 10 out of 10 couples.
Mm.
Like you're like the first video that I saw was like the American, like you would think of like the American dream couple.
Yeah.
Tall, thin,
Thin,
blonde
blonde and
woman,
white.
blue
Yeah.
eyes. Like their comment section is just these people being like, no, she's uglier. No, he's uglier. No, he, and I'm like,
Oh my
who are
God.
you looking at? Like
Yeah.
who are you
Are we
looking
watching the
at
same
in
video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
this video? And I was like, okay, well, if you want to see a couple that by beauty standards doesn't make sense, I'll show you one because we've been dealing with that our from the minute I became plus size. I mean, to be honest, I've probably always been bigger than him. I wholeheartedly exploited Scott. Wholeheartedly exploited Scott.
Your face.
Shirtless photos of him on the beach, like, and then just
Uh,
me being plus size in the front of the video.
Yeah.
And I texted him and I was like, this is gonna go viral. And he's like, no, it's not. And I was like, I think it is. I think
yes.
it's
Yep,
gonna
it is.
I think it's gonna go viral for the wrong reason. Like I think the wrong
Right.
people are gonna get onto it, but I think it's definitely gonna get views. And then one night I was like I had gotten a part-time job bartending and my sister was like, oh my God, it's at 100,000 views. Oh my gosh, it's at 200,000 views. And it just back then, like that 4 years ago, that was like big views. So I think it hit like
Yeah.
3.2 million at that time.
Yeah.
And then we woke up with 56,000 followers
Mm.
after this one video. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, here comes like because I'd read the comments, I knew
Right.
what
Yeah.
a lot of people were saying. And then I got into the comment section and like our on my other videos of these like 56,000 people who chose to follow us being like, wow, like I'm bigger than my partner too. It's nice to know we're not alone. And just all of these conversations being had in the comment section that were powerful. Like
Yes.
I'm bigger than my husband. Why does that mean that
Why
I'm
does that
less
matter?
than?
Yeah.
And like just like going through this, like and I was like, oh shit, like people understand what I go
Yep.
through on a regular basis. And that was like the first moment that I felt not alone. And then
Oh,
that was when I was like, shoot, we have an opportunity here to create something and have conversations. And at that point, I was pretty comfortable in my body and I was pretty comfortable with the steps that I had taken to get to that point.
right.
So that was very helpful when things blew up because there was nothing meaner that anybody else was going to say to me that I already had said to myself. Yeah. So like it at that point, I was prepared for the conversations that were going to be had. And we decided what our pillars were going to be and what we wanted to create. And that the authenticity that you talked about earlier about just like sharing my life. I was tired. I grew
Yeah.
up in a generation where you followed people and you watched people because that's what you wanted to be and
You
you
curated.
aspired to
Yeah.
look like them and
Mhm.
you wanted to like live that life. I want to live my life and
Right.
I want to be happy doing it. And
Mhm.
like
Yes.
I don't need to be living somebody else's life. And I think when we decided to share, we knew that it would be hard work to be inauthentic. It's
Mm.
harder. It's
Yes.
harder to
Much
be
harder.
inauthentic than it is to be authentic online. And like I'm about that lazy life. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to be curating my stuff. I don't want I don't want to meet you in the grocery store with a bun on the top of my head and you'd be like, "Oh, she doesn't look like she
Oof.
looks like online." Or,
Yeah.
I want to be able to show up as I am every single day and
Yeah.
you get what you get because that's how everybody is showing up.
Yes.
Because that's
Yes.
like everybody is just showing up, doing their best every single day. And like I wanted people to be able to see that. And then from there it is just catapulted into really cool conversations about relationships, intimacy, movement with my body, my
Yes.
relationship with my body, to humor. Like I
Yeah.
picture my space being this giant house, and you're not going to use every room in my house, but you're more than welcome in it, and to
Right.
come and get what you need, um, and find comfort in this space, and
Mm.
whenever you want.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
it's become obviously the coolest thing that's ever happened to us, but
Right.
there's just something so fulfilling about being able to live your life authentically. It's something people dream about doing and then
Yeah.
in turn
Yeah.
helping other people do the same. Like
Absolutely.
there's no better job than
There
that.
really isn't.
That's
That's the
Yeah.
way we show up.
Yep. That's
Like
why we started this podcast.
I'm a messy girl. Like I'm
Yeah.
sweaty, I'm loud, I laugh a lot. Like when I do my videos or any sort of content, I want people to literally do exactly what you just said. When they see me in person, they're like, "Oh my God, I feel like I know you."
Yeah.
So when they're
Mhm.
walking into my studio, it's not like, "Who is this person?" It's like, holy
Right.
shit, I see you every day. Like, that's such a rewarding thing for me. And I
Mhm.
think you do the same thing. Like, you have like a dry sense of humor and you show up
Yes.
that way. Like, it's refreshing that there are people in the world like you that do that, because when other people do it, it feels less weird. Like, it feels like
Well,
Right.
there's more people like that,
Yeah.
like us
yeah.
than there is not like us.
Yeah.
Like the whole, I mean, obviously this is a deeper conversation, but somehow through the media and through what we see, we've made ourselves the minority in a conversation that we are the majority.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow we've made looking like a supermodel, the majority of people look like that. They
Yep.
don't look like that.
No, they
We're the
don't.
majority.
Right.
It's one of the only things where we aspire to be not the popular thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not that's not the majority. The majority of the world doesn't have
Right.
abs. The majority of the world doesn't have perfect skin. The majority of the world isn't living in a size zero body. So why
Right.
we ever assume that that's
Yes.
something we should all be doing is just so silly.
Yeah.
And I think like through this I have realized by showing up that everybody's tired,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
even the people who fit those beauty standards. And like that was big and eye opening for me, is that living in a plus size body, I always like, I'm alone. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
understands what I go through.
Right.
Being in a fat body, although there are things that are unique, and there's things like fat phobia, and just, like there's things that happen specifically to fat people that don't happen to thin people,
Right.
but there is more common ground between those who are living in fat bodies and than living in the bodies that fit the beauty standards than there is differences. We're
Correct.
all like fighting to get, whether you're fighting to get into the box or you're fighting to stay in the box, we're all doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so much judgment upon one another that it's like if we could just figure out a way to get rid of the box, everybody would just be a
Yeah.
whole.
We say that
Everybody
all
would
the
just
time. I love that. I love that you say that. Yeah.
whole lot happier. Like if
Yeah.
we could just figure out that like we're not fighting each other, we need to be fighting a system. And like
Yeah.
that's kind of the issue. And I had this on a conversation on a recent podcast. They were talking about a thin actress talking about her experience in her thin body and how people like devalue that. Like, oh, but it could be or it could be. And I'm like, I wish we just would stop and say, it's shitty. It's
Mhm.
shitty that you feel that way.
Yes.
Like
Mhm.
it's not what it could be. It's shitty that the world makes you feel that way. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's shitty that our systems have built us to believe that
Mhm.
we need to look a certain way or feel a certain way in our bodies. And like that's unfair regardless of if you're living in a big body or a little body. So I
Yeah.
think having my platforms really helped me understand that. That's why I switched my conversation to a self-love conversation, because everybody struggles with that.
Yeah.
Everyone.
That's not a unique experience to somebody who's living in a fat body, although there are more barriers. I
Yes.
think for people who are living in fat bodies, everybody's struggling to find a
Everyone.
level of self-love, and that's my husband, my little sister, like the
Yeah.
people that I love, like, and they're not living in big bodies. So
Right.
I think it's really helped me shift my focus of like, I'm alone, you don't understand, to we're in this together.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've got to figure this out. Like we have
Yeah.
to work together to like figure out how to like break down these barriers for each other's
Right.
mental health and success and well-being.
Right.
And I think it's less of like, I want you to feel miserable with me in my body, to I want us all to feel that
Joy.
joy and
Yeah.
happiness, and that we have a community of other like-minded people. I think to me that is the narrative that needs to be happening, is
Mhm.
like, we don't all need to sit in misery. We can all be joyful together. It's not a pie that only has a certain amount of pieces.
Right.
It's like abundance and joy and happiness and like just being content in your body. I don't
Right.
know. It's
We
like a
just stayed
totally
home
different
for
narrative.
2 years. Like we're all tired.
Yeah.
Everybody's different
Everyone.
and changed and had trauma from COVID. However that looked for you. Like let's
Right.
go out and love each other and find joy, and let's do whatever our bodies are doing and let's do it together. It's
Yeah.
like that's the goal. I think it's interesting.
The pandemic really opened a lot of eyes to, I
Yeah.
think, like people who had never struggled with their bodies before struggled with their bodies for the first time
For
in
the first time.
2020.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big eye opener for a lot of people. And I am a firm believer that in order for change to happen, those that are not suffering from the system need to be the loudest voices. And that's
Yeah.
for everything.
Absolutely.
However, when the pandemic hit and people started struggling with their bodies for the first time and weren't fitting into the same clothes and had never experienced that before, it did get louder because now they were being impacted, or they were watching somebody they love be impacted by their body changing and
Yeah.
struggling for the first time. So I think it's built a bigger community, but I also think it's built a bigger, more understanding community because it's opened a lot of people's eyes, and so many people were impacted by the changes that came along with it. And it was about survival for a lot of people. And when you realize that your body is what survives through that, and your body is what carries you through
Yeah.
those days, it's hard to not respect something that gets up every single day, regardless of, what you chose to do to it or not do to it the day
Yeah.
before. And yeah, so I obviously pandemic was shitty, but I think it did create a different narrative for a lot of people who had never been in this boat before, who had never understood what it was like to change sizes or struggle with your body or have a different view of your body image. And it's been interesting to listen to people talk about their first time experiencing that stuff,
Right.
and joining in the conversation that they probably didn't think was important before. So really eye opening for a lot of
Yeah.
people, and a lot of people in my community too.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I also think there's a little bit of a backslide happening right now that like people are forgetting what it felt like coming right out of COVID, that they were so empathetic and it was like, wow, I finally understand what you're saying to actually I am in the club, you're still not. I'm going to slide back into this like weird mentality of like
Yeah,
othering again. And I've
yeah,
noticed a subtle shift and I've had to go through and like I talk about curating your feed a lot. We talk about curating your feed a
Yeah.
lot and following people like you that are just like unapologetically you. And I've had to unfollow several people
Yeah.
recently
mhm,
that really felt comfortable and safe and at home for me. And all of a sudden I watch their accounts and I'm like, that doesn't actually feel empowered anymore. Like
yeah,
I don't like that
and that's
narrative.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
And like
much
I
so.
think like shifting that conversation to that was like that was step 5 in kind of how I started to really understand the impact that social media really had and was having on me and my mental health, and realizing that this is the one piece of our world that we are in control of.
Yes.
We're not in
Mhm.
control of the ads, we're not in control of the news, we're not in control of the TV, we're not in control of and even the things you are in control of, like you have your favorite TV shows that you're like, but you're not in control of the fat phobic script.
Right.
You're not in
Yeah.
control of the things that
True.
pop up, and the conversations that are had. So the one thing you are in control of is the first thing you probably open on your phone every day, and the last thing you see before you go to bed, and that's your social media. And understanding that it is should be considered a privilege to be in your space, and
Mhm.
explaining to people that it should be a privilege for people to be impacting your life. This isn't a light thing. Like, these are people who are making you feel good when you wake up in the morning and making you feel good
Yeah.
before you go to
Love
bed,
that.
or doing the opposite.
Or
Like,
doing the
you
Yes.
at the
opposite.
end of the day, you're and understanding that there's no hard feelings. And
Oh,
Right.
I've gone through this shift of, there were people when I was in a very toxic relationship with my body that I followed back then,
Mm.
that I thought
yep,
were empowering me,
me
but
too.
were not empowering me. But I
Mm,
liked them, and the
Yeah.
thought
right.
of following them anymore felt like this harsh thing. And
Mm.
Yep.
then now I'm back into a place with my body where I feel confident and I feel good,
Yeah.
and I can follow those people again.
Mhm.
Because was it that person's intention to make me feel bad? No. Like, I don't think anybody is maliciously looking to make somebody feel bad about who they are, but that's what was happening, but I'm in charge of that. And,
Right.
it's not a hard feeling. So I don't think that I am a great space for lots of people either. I think that it's hard, putting myself back into when I was feeling super shameful of my body, and I was in, a bad relationship with food, and I was
Mm,
back in that diet of, I can't be happy fat, I need to be thin. If I would have saw somebody who looked like me, living their best life while I was struggling so deeply, I would have been pissed off.
mm.
I would have been like, "No."
Absolutely not. The
That
Yeah.
audacity that you have. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that sounds funny, but I get it all the time. I get
Mm,
people who are living in fat bodies all the time being like, "You can't be happy. This is ridiculous. Like, you're never and I understand it, and I can empathize with that. So I might not be the safest space for them right now because
Yeah.
they're not in a place where their body where they feel good in their body or they want to see my joy. And that's
Right.
totally okay. And like I think that's been a very like humbling thing for me because I'm a people pleaser. I want everybody to like me. But then, there's that quote of like, why do you want everybody to like you when you don't like everybody? And I think that that's like genuinely an okay thing. Like we're not supposed to like that's an okay thing. We can pick and choose, and people who serve you now with who you are might not serve you in 5 years with
Yeah,
who you are then. And
Absolutely.
like that's the beauty of a curated feed is that I get to
Absolutely.
decide what it looks like it today and I get to decide what it looks like next year. And maybe I'm gonna want to learn how to do a 5K and I'm gonna fill my feed with people who are excited to be doing that. And that's what I need then. Or
yeah,
maybe I'm gonna want to learn how to do something different. Like that's the beauty of it. And there's no hard feelings in that. Like there shouldn't be. Like
None.
it
Yeah.
should be considered a privilege to
yeah,
be what
Absolutely.
you see in the morning and what you see before you go to bed. And like
Yep.
not putting that ownership on yourself allows you to be a victim to your own social media accounts. And that's like the one thing we have control over. So
Absolutely.
like there's not much.
no,
No, but that is one of them.
yep.
Yeah.
At first, I will say I did not agree with you. This is so funny. So you're haters. You're like, I'm gonna put everybody on blast. And people would be like, just ignore them, Alicia. And you're like, no, and also fuck you. I'm gonna put everybody on blast. You're like, and I love that. I you gave me such a good perspective on it. And I love that. I'd love for you to talk about that because it must be really hard to get shitty comments when you're posting joy.
This narrative is twofold. One, as a content creator, there is this underlying rule that we have to accept what comes our
Yeah.
direction when it comes to the negative.
Yep.
Like,
It's a
oh,
great
that's a
point.
part, the part of being a content creator.
Mhm.
That's gonna happen. What are you complaining about? You get to do all this stuff. And it's like, well, no,
Absolutely.
there's no other job in this world that has to accept the type of abuse that I accept on a regular
Yeah.
basis. There's not. And as a content creator, I don't have an HR. I don't have a team that I can go through that can protect
Right.
me. I don't have these things. And even the things that are meant to protect me, like the hide features on Instagram and the hide features on TikTok, they suck. They don't
They
work.
suck. They're
They're
so
hiding.
bad.
The other day, I had to unhide 7 positive comments on my video. And I was like, in fact, you're making it worse. Like you're taking away the good comments.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for me, if I was gonna do this, I was like, I'm not gonna just. I can expect it. I can expect that that's going
Yeah.
to happen, but there's no need for me to have to accept the type of abuse I receive every day. Like I would, if I wouldn't accept it to my face, there's no way I'm accepting it online, especially in the world that we're living in. Like I can understand why people have that idea. 10 years ago, the internet wasn't like it is now.
No.
Now it's all encompassing. You can hate on me on every single one of my platforms. You can create as many accounts as you possibly want to. You can create whatever narrative you feel like. And if this is going to be my job forever, I need you to know that that's not something that I'm going to
Yeah.
tolerate. And
Right.
coming out and saying that has been super helpful because it has dropped
Mm.
people, like it has stopped people from stepping in. And I also think it's funny because if I actually genuinely put everybody on blast who said something hurtful to me every single day, that would be my
It
full
would
time
be your
job.
entire
Yeah.
It
platform.
would
Yeah.
be my entire platform. However, I am not okay with people who, in their everyday lives, pose as someone who's inclusive and kind and supportive of everybody, who then spends their nights belittling, bashing, and dehumanizing the people they're supposed to be supporting every day.
Yep.
And I
Absolutely.
draw that line there. And this happened to me a few years ago. I had a yoga instructor from out west in Canada comment on one of my videos and say something awful. And then I had the time. So I'm like digging and I find her name, I find her public profile, I find her job, and I find out she's a yoga instructor.
Ugh.
Under her name of this yoga instructor is welcoming of all body types. I want to see blah 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 blah. This huge thing about how she wants to curate a class that welcomes people when it makes her money. And this is just a class example of how the world works when it comes to fat bodies of
Mm.
I'll take your money, but I'm still not going to respect you. And
Oof.
like I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You're not going to come in here and expect no repercussions for acting like this when this is
Right.
what you do on your everyday job. And
Yeah.
we do the same. We expect police officers to act a certain way. We expect politicians to act a certain way. We expect hold these people. If we need to start holding people who live in this body space to a higher standard of how they're acting outside of it. And I put her on blast. I have absolutely no problems. I will call your job. I will make
Yeah.
sure that your boss knows that that's how you're doing. Because if that's how you're treating people when you think nobody is watching,
I
Yep.
can't even imagine what happens
right.
in real life.
Yep.
Oof.
And I'll share usernames, but I've only ever spoken about two people's jobs online. And that's because how can you think that you as a person can live this life every day upholding these values and
Mm.
then not do that
And
online
do
and
this
not do
online.
that.
This on yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we're not just talking her coming on being like, you need to lead a healthy lifestyle and I'm worried about your health. We're talking about her literally dehumanizing me as a fat person.
Ew.
Like it wasn't like a I'd love for you to try my yoga class. It was a you're fat. You're not worthy. Like it was a
Ugh.
huge contrast. So
Ew.
yeah, like I vet the people who I do choose
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
like I'm not posting usernames of 17-year-old kids and 16-year-old kids online. Like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I understand that there's a difference between Bradley who's bored at
Yeah.
lunch calling
Yes.
me a fat pig than Brenda who is a trained
Yoga
like
instructor.
yoga
Adult.
instructor who's supposed to be creating a safe environment for fat
Yeah.
people who spends her free time belittling them online. Like
Mm.
and I also if I didn't have that, allowed people to say those things in my comment sections and I didn't have those conversations, what am I saying to the people that follow me
Yes.
Right.
if
Yep.
I allow those
Yeah.
people to exist in my space? Because I'm in a space where Brendan calling me a fat pig on his lunch break doesn't bother me. But if I allow that to exist in my space for
Mhm.
somebody who's not in a place like I am with my body,
Yep.
then when they come to my comment section and they see what Brendan says, but they see themselves in me, and that's what Brendan thinks about me, well, then obviously that's what Brendan thinks about them. And
Right.
it's just, it, I'm not okay with the people who follow me and see themselves in me, see me accept that type of
Yeah.
abuse
Absolutely.
I like that.
because that
Yeah.
doesn't empower anybody to do the same. And whether we want to think that it just exists online, I know from sharing and standing up to things online how many people are choosing to do that every day in their life
Yes.
because I
Yeah.
don't accept it online. And like I think that there's like a much bigger picture to that. Um, but yeah, I have a little system that I follow that's helped me kind of navigate when to have the conversation, when to educate. I erase, I educate, or I eradicate from my space. I
Mm.
erase it when it's Brendan bored on his lunch break. I educate it when it's somebody coming in with like false like health concerns or like preaching all the risks that there is to be fat. I take the time to educate and then I eradicate when they create an unsafe space for me and my followers. And those are kind of my 3 E's that I follow, which makes it about a business and instead of it being about me. Like that's kind of allowed me to separate myself from what I choose to do. I don't believe in silence. I think that a lot of people suffer in silence and um I think for me, I have the responsibility to empower the people that choose see themselves in me to stick up for themselves, whether that's online or in their everyday life. And
Yeah.
I think we've been shoved the narrative of like, don't say anything, tell a teacher, don't fight back. When
Right.
realistically, like sometimes you do have to say,
Right.
this isn't okay. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to accept this here. And I've noticed a drastic difference since I put my foot down
I love
and started
that.
having those conversations.
I think that's wonderful. I love the
Yeah.
3 E's.
Yeah, I do too.
Erase, educate, eradicate.
Yeah.
I'm
Are
gonna
you gonna
take
do
that.
that?
I'm gonna take that in because I spend a lot of time erasing on my platform. I think
Mm-hmm.
you do too.
Yeah.
Where I'll post somebody's boudoir photo and I'm a size inclusive boudoir photographer. I shoot up to a 6X. So I show all body types. And oftentimes I never, well, it's a long story. I had a bit of a stalker, so I never tag people anymore. So they have to go onto their photo and see what's being said about them. But I never, ever, ever want them to come on and feel so good in their body after their shoot and then see what's being said that's in the negative space. So for
Yeah.
me, it's an immediate erase because it's not about my body.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So it's a little bit different, but when they come on to photos of me, of my selfies, I do the same thing a little bit like education first. If that doesn't work, then it's like block and whatever.
Yeah.
But I really do like that.
Mhm.
And I think your platform would feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, mine's more ad focused, so I'll run an ad that has a bigger body in it, and oh my god, I mean, again, I'm in a small body, and I'm the blue eyed blonde that's like over here yelling for
Hmm.
bigger bodies, but like
Yeah.
I was appalled when I saw the comments for those ads. I mean, I wouldn't even say the words here. I read them on our first podcast episode. I decided to bring those comments, slightly inspired by you. Like, no, I'm not going to sit on these. I'm going to talk about them because
Right.
it feels weird to talk about them because there is a weird. If it sounds like you've thought about. Obviously, you've thought about this a lot, but like my initial reaction was like, no, don't bring light to it. And then when I was sitting down, it was hard because I was like, I'm about to read these comments that people have left on my ads. And this is how we're going to start this podcast
Yeah.
so that everybody knows that this is a safe space.
Jumped
And
right in.
yeah. And so as I was reading that, I felt disgusting. I just couldn't believe that people sit down at a computer and actually type out these words, knowing that someone is going to see
That
this.
there's a human on
There's a
the end.
human.
It's not just a bot. It's not just like a
And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
I, the
it's a whole,
freeze.
it's
I love
hard.
that.
It's super hard. And I think that like the I understand why people are like, "Oh, we're not gonna shed light on it. We're not gonna talk about it." There are people who are just looking for attention. However, there's a bigger picture. When I educate, yeah, sure. Do I think that when I educate the loser online who's saying and calling me names that they're gonna become a better person? Not necessarily.
No,
But for every one person that said it, there are other people who are thinking it. So when I comment and I educate and I post, it's not just one person that's reading it.
nope.
It's
Yeah.
there are more people. It's not just one person. I think we like think that these are like these little things.
Yeah.
No, they're
They're not.
big
No.
things. They're
Yeah.
big things. My favorite thing in the whole entire world is to pin comments. When people say horrible things, I'm like, but pin it.
Pin it.
I'll let everybody else deal with you. And
Yes,
we're gonna
yeah.
show. And I think
That's
there's
my
so
favorite.
also like the concept that we're not experiencing this. When I shared the mean comments that were being said to me and the things that were happening to me, people were like, "What?" And I'm like, "Every day." Like you
Mm,
Yeah,
don't, and I think people underestimate what is actually happening
yeah,
to a lot of people. And like I speak from the experience of being a fat person, but it's genuinely it happens to me every day, all the
yeah.
time, and people are like, "Oh, you live this cushy life," and I'm like, "But do I?" Because
no.
every day
Yeah.
You're at war.
somebody tells me I don't deserve to be here. Every day, somebody tells me I'm not a valuable human being. And whether or not you want to think that I signed up for that, nobody signs up for that.
No
That's
one.
No.
not, that should never be the part of anybody's job or anybody's platform ever. But yeah, I'm glad you're having that conversation. And like, I so appreciate you being the person who's living in a thin body, like having these conversations because we need those people. Like, it's one of those things. It's like I can only say so much about my experience
Yeah.
until
Mhm.
it's one of those things where you need the people who are not
Correct.
experiencing it to be your advocates at some point because it's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it you can only scream so loud, you can only say so much before it just becomes this daunting, overpowering, an exhausting place to like exist and be. And I try not to let that be an overbearing part of my platform,
Correct.
but I will have those conversations because I do think that that education piece for people is really important. Like for
Mhm.
people to learn how to stick up for themselves, for people to learn how to have these conversations, even just the words that make it impactful when they
Yeah.
do.
Absolutely.
And there are people who are following me who don't like me. There are people who are following me that don't believe in my platform, that don't see me as an equal in my fat body. Um, but they're still following me and they're still listening to the things that I'm saying, and that just is breeding a tolerance. And I don't need you to like me. I don't need you to want to see me be successful, but I need you to respect people who look like me because like at the end of the day, that we're human beings and like that's all of us, every single one of us. So it's yeah, I'm passionate about it because it's taken me a long time to see the freedom in having the conversations
Yeah.
that
Right.
are negative and like holding people accountable to certain
Yeah.
things. But
Absolutely.
I also like for people to know that I vet the people that I do choose to put on blast. I
It's
do
not just
I
like "Bruh,
it's
everyone
not
should
an like it's a
yeah.
I have a responsibility
Yeah.
Yeah.
to not,
Yeah.
I have a responsibility, but I like at the same time I also have a responsibility to myself and to my community to make sure that people understand that this isn't a place where you can behave like that.
You have an
And
enormous amount of grace.
Yeah.
Let's just put that out there. The fact that you even look into the people that have taken time out of their day to try and make you feel shitty,
Yeah.
and you don't want to do that in a reciprocal way,
Yeah.
you just shows the kind of human and caliber of human you are, and that is really fucking impressive. That's a ton of grace.
it's not easy. It's not
No.
easy. It isn't easy. And sometimes do I wish that I could just post and go, but I never post and go. And anytime I've ever actually put anybody on blast, it's never lasted 24 hours.
Right.
Like I think I also still I live with that guilt of like, what
Mm,
are other people saying? I can't control what other people on the internet say to this person. I can't, but at the same time, I didn't control you being in my space.
right.
Right.
I didn't ask.
Not my responsibility to protect you, but I still also do realize that them existing, I can take it. I'm gonna write it on my video, I can take it. I know that tomorrow I'm not even gonna think twice about your existence.
Mhm.
Yeah.
However, if you're leaving that on my video, what are you saying to other people? What are
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
commenting on other people's videos?
Right.
And I care too much about the people who are vulnerable like me
Mhm.
than the people who are leaving the abuse. Because
Yeah.
if I would be in a different spot with my body and somebody would say the things that they've said to me on my platform, uh, I
Ooh.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Same.
know. I don't know what the outcome is there. I don't know where that sends people. I don't know who's struggling. So
Yeah.
it's one of those swords of like I have to pick and choose who I care more about, and I
Mm.
care more about the people who are struggling like me in their bodies than I do about the people who choose to come online and be uh,
What a
awful
beautiful
human
human.
beings.
It's good. It's
You're
good
such a
shit. She's
beautiful
got good
human.
shit. Yeah.
That's and it comes across that way, but to hear you say it
Yeah.
one on one like this is so fucking cool.
Well,
it's
and
a
it
new
like,
it's a nuanced topic.
It
yeah.
There's a new.
is.
I'm not going to get it right every time.
No.
No.
Wait, none of us are. Right.
You don't have to agree with the way that I handle things, but when you come up with an alternative to
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
doing that's
Let
going to
me know.
create a safer space, you
But we
tell me.
help you. Yeah.
Yeah, and like
Let's all do it.
I've had that conversation with people when they've been like, I don't agree with this, and I'm like, well, if you want me to send you a list of the things that people have said to me this week, then we can have a conversation about what
Yes.
you do and don't agree with, because
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you don't agree with somebody commenting your fat, but do you agree with somebody sliding into my DMs telling me that they wish I was dead? Do you
Right.
agree with
Disgusting.
whole threads of people talking about my body and the people that I love, and like, you if you understood, you don't want my platform to be about negativity, but you're also not willing to understand or trust that I'm making the right decisions for me and my platform when I
Yeah.
do
Mhm.
those things. I don't want to burden you with the details because that's what it's going to do. I'm
Yeah.
going to
Right.
share the details and you're going to be sick to your stomach.
Yes.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
but
Absolutely that.
let's just trust that when I make those decisions, I'm not making them lightly. I'm
Yeah.
not making those choices to put people on blast or to have those conversations out of sheer like uh,
Yeah.
anger or in
Right.
fact I sleep on it always because I
Mm.
know myself, I know my emotions, I understand that there's a level of like reaction and actual education, and yeah, it's nice to be able to get it out there like for people to understand there's a process. Like I take my time. It's a
Yeah.
Well, and it's
I
probably people that look like me that are like, "Oh, just don't do that." And you're like, "No, no. Listen, you
yes,
don't understand in your little body." And
yeah,
so this is why I like created the influencer advisory board. This is why
Yeah.
you're here. This is why, and it's like, what do I know? We got to talk about it, And
Yeah.
I
yeah,
literally created an advisory board of influencers. They're fantastic. And they advise me once a quarter. And I call them with all the things. Obviously, we became close and started a podcast, but
Yeah.
like I'll call you and say, what's the right way to handle this?
Right.
Because I think I know.
Well, but you also created a product for plus size bodies. You don't
Yeah.
live in that space,
yeah,
right?
Yes.
So like you don't know like that skin folds actually do smell.
Right. Yeah.
Like you don't
yeah,
know that my back fat after a workout is going to smell a little musky, right?
Right.
Like you
yeah,
don't live in that body, so you have to surround yourself with people who do.
Yeah.
And I
yeah,
think that's why you show up so positively in this space because you're always asking questions. You're
Yeah.
always, what do I not know? What am I missing?
What else? What
Could
else?
this
What
be
else?
done better?
Yeah.
Is it a consistency issue? Like you're so diligent about
Yeah.
that. But like, I think there are very few people in a body like yours that are curious, that take the time and surround themselves by people that look like us.
Yeah.
Like it's just a different
Well, and
mentality.
we don't need to be commenting
yeah.
on what you need to be doing in your space either.
Right.
It's kind of what
Yeah, yeah, and I
you
mean,
know.
it's again though, like I think with everything, like when we're talking, like on a deeper like we're talking about homophobia and racism and fat phobia and all
Yeah.
of these things that affect the world, it's until you're impacted by it,
Yes.
not a lot of you don't
Yep.
care about it. And
Yep.
like it's one of those things that like even people you're living in certain spaces, like that's where the and even people who are profiting off of it, like that yoga instructor profiting
Yes.
off of creating a full space doesn't mean that she has to respect me because she doesn't,
No.
Mm.
but I'm paying her bills. And
Yeah.
Oh,
like again, it's one of those things that it's like there's no real way, but like you just said, like living in a like what don't I know space
Yeah.
is a really cool space to live in. And it's a
Yes.
very like humbling space to live in to be like, I don't know it. I
Yeah.
don't know anything. Like in a
right.
grand scheme of like what there is to know in this world, I know nothing. And
Yeah.
understanding that
Yeah.
has been really helpful for me
Yeah.
too. And like I said, I started my platform speaking predominantly to like issues in a fat body, and I moved to every fucking buddy is struggling.
Yeah.
Everybody is
Yes.
struggling in their
Holy
bodies, and
shit. Yep.
it's not just me and my fat body. Obviously, there are certain things that are different depending on all bodies, all experiences. Everybody
Mhm.
is a little bit different, but everybody is struggling. And like
Yep.
Yeah.
coming from the let's ask questions was like really eye opening for me.
Yeah.
Like I put out a question which was really unique to my followers who are living in straight size bodies and said, what when have you ever felt overvalued or devalued because of your body? Because I mean,
Oh.
as a fat person, it's easy for me to talk about that. Like I can be like, and I was getting these 10 out of 10 on the beauty standards scale talking about how their boss has made them feel less than because the only reason why they got that job is because of their body. And here they
Oof.
are fucking doctors who
Yeah.
have to pass tests and get an education and like and just there was this it was a very big eye-opening conversation for me to be like, oh shit,
Yeah.
Mhm.
it happens to
Yeah.
everybody. Like this shit is happening to everybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started talking about whether or not you're inside the box or outside of the box.
Yeah.
Everybody is we're doing the same thing
Yep.
and we're all fucking struggling because it's
Yes.
Yeah.
you and that box just allows fat people to feel like they're never doing enough
Mm.
and your thin friends to suffer in silence.
Right. To suffer in silence.
Yeah, because you look like you're healthy, you look like you're doing well,
Mhm.
you look like you're fine. Whereas regardless of how I look in my fat body, you're never gonna think I'm healthy, you're never gonna think I'm fine, you're never gonna think that I'm, doing well. And I always say your fat friends can be thriving and your friends can be struggling. And like that's such an important conversation. Like
Mm-hmm.
we
Yeah.
need
Mm-hmm.
we need to stop checking on each other because of how we look and start checking in on each other because we care because it's way deep, like way deeper than that, than
Way,
just
way deeper.
me. And yeah, and I just that's kind of how mine has shifted, and it comes from that mentality of like,
Yeah.
what don't I know? Like,
Yep.
Yeah, and it's so weird because like when I started shooting, I started because I lost a parent and it's a really long story, but I wasn't aware that everyone that I shot, it didn't matter if they were a size 00 or a 20, we all had the same insecurities. And I was not prepared for that. I would walk into family sessions and the mom would be frantic and asking me to like Photoshop her neck and her rolls out. And I'd be like, what the heck? You're like a size 2. What are you even talking about? It took like a whole year of that. And that was back in 2000 and what, 14, 15? That was a long time ago. And to me, embrace all bodies is my slogan
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter what body type you're in. I want you to feel solid and
Yeah.
sound and embraced for the human that you are,
Yep.
not for the human that you could be and what society expects us to be, right? So
mhm,
it took a lot of unlearning my own insecurities to learn that everybody had their
Yeah.
yeah,
insecurities. And that was a really big, powerful moment and such a pivotal shift in my life
Yeah.
because it made me feel so much fucking less alone.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
So
again, I don't want to suffer in misery with you. I want all of us to feel better.
Yeah.
yeah. Megan fucking Fox just got on an interview and said that she doesn't like her body, that she struggles with her body. She's on the front page of like a literally Sports Illustrated swimsuit. She's been voted sexiest woman alive multiple times.
Multiple times.
I think she's extremely attractive. So I just
Yeah.
in my brain, like, can we not realize that this is a fucking system issue?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes,
this is nothing to do with us.
yes.
This has nothing to do with us. If the person that you look at and want to look like or feel like they fall within this perfection is struggling with their body, why? Like, why?
Mm.
Yeah.
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 What's the point then?
Right.
Right.
Because, and I mean, I learned that from my own experience. Like, I lost a lot of weight, walked across the bikini competition, walked across the stage, and I was like, perfect, we're gonna be happy now. And then
Yeah.
I'm like walking across the stage, and I'm like, oh, like my belly's still a little bit big, and like, oh, I could probably, and in
Uh,
my own brain, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Why are
what are
you
you
thinking that?
I
going on
killed
Yeah.
about that?
myself to do this. Like
Yeah.
I literally killed myself to be here
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah,
still not enough.
I
What are
know.
we
And I
doing?
just that reality for me was like, oh shoot, maybe it's my brain and the systems that I live
Yeah.
in that are impacting me, and not
Yep.
actually the body
Yep.
that
Yeah.
did all of this work, that
Yeah.
shows
Right.
up for me every day. Like,
Yeah.
it's the one thing
Yeah.
that we has no choice but to be there. It has no
Right.
choice. Like, it doesn't matter how much food I eat the day before, how much I neglect it, how I speak to it, how mean I am to it. Tomorrow, I'm going to wake up and my 2 feet are going to hit the ground, and it's
Yeah.
going to do everything I ask it. And
Mm.
like, to think about how much I've neglected it,
Mm.
if it were a person, it would have been gone a long time ago. Like, genuinely, if it were a person, it would have been gone a long time ago. And like,
Yeah.
I have spent the last 6 years trying my damn best to make it up to this body, because I know how I treated it. I know the things I said to it. I know the expectations I've put on it, and it's done all of them, every single one of them. And yet I still have days where I'm angry at it, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
or it's the easiest thing. But I mean, again, it's the easiest thing to take our anger out on, because at the end of the day, it has no
Yeah.
choice. Has
It
no
can't
choice
g
but to
Right.
be
Can't
it
here.
go
can't
anywhere.
go
Yeah.
anywhere. I know, I tell people that all the time. It can't go anywhere, so you might as well talk nice
Yeah.
to it because
Exactly.
she ain't going anywhere.
Right.
It has
Yeah.
no
Well,
choice but to be here tomorrow. So
exactly.
Yeah. Mm.
The last thing I want to talk about with you is your humor,
You're
because
funny as
I
fuck.
think I'm funny. And I like, it's rare that I'm like, oh, that person's legit funny. Legit. Like, I have to tell you, I was snorted shit out of my nose when I watched. I don't know exactly where you were, but you and Scott were like, you were climbing on, you were like, hold the camera, and you were running and climbing on like the different silver. I was laughing
that's
my ass off because I thought you were going to be
uh,
like, hold the camera and then pose. And you just kept surprising me with like, and you were like running up. I mean, every time I don't know what I'm going to get from you. Like, and it's just, I mean, I think you're fucking hilarious. And I feel like Scott like doesn't want to laugh at you and tries really hard. And then he's like, and just like
Loses it. Yeah.
always laugh. I love the gym stuff you're doing. I just love it.
Yeah. The
I know it's
joy.
natural, but man, you make me laugh my ass off.
Yeah.
you know what? Like, for Scott and I, humor has been, will always be like the very first piece of our foundation
Yeah.
was humor and laughter. And
Love
I
that.
know people joke about trauma, like humor, trauma.
Yeah.
Um, it
Yeah.
that's a truthful thing. That
Yeah.
is definitely a truthful thing. But I think there's so much power in laughter. And who am I to be taking up space, trying to help you love your body, trying to help you find like this relationship with things that are tough and hard, and having these rough conversations and making you cry all the time, if I don't make space to also
Yeah.
show you that there's so much joy.
So
Like,
much joy.
there's so much joy in regular day things. It doesn't have to be this,
Yeah.
you know, curated, scripted thing. Like, I have come a long way with my humor too, in the sense that like I wasn't living this joyously in my body for a long time.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
I
love
wouldn't
that.
do the things that I do now, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that's like super important, but uh, humor just makes things easier.
It
Yes.
Like,
does.
when you're learning to, when you're breaking down all of, or unlearning all of the things you never signed up to learn, like, that's hard fucking work.
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
not getting paid out of it.
No.
You're not getting paid for it. You don't come out of it with a degree. It doesn't make you more money, but
Right.
I assure you, it will help you live a much
Yeah.
healthier, better, fulfilled life. However, you can't do that all the time without some days off, without a
Yeah.
break, without, you know. So I think that that's where the comedy stems from for me specifically, is that if I'm not laughing, I'm crying. And I think it's really important to like give people a break. Like,
Yes.
everything doesn't have to be heavy all of the time, and even the heavy things can be funny.
They
Like,
yes.
They can. They
even the
can.
heavy things can be funny.
Yep.
Like, you can find humor in in everything. Like, I'm a firm believer that you can find humor in everything, and
That is a fact.
yeah, I'm also being the center of attention, and humor is the easiest way to be it.
Yeah.
And like, so when I'm in a room full of people, if I'm not making you laugh, I'm not doing what I think I should be
That's me
doing.
too.
So
Right.
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
and I think that that's super important. And but yeah, I think that I have a responsibility with the tough conversations that I do have and the content that I do curate to like make you laugh too. Like
Yeah.
I think that
Absolutely.
you need a break sometimes. Everything can't be about, you know, changing your relationship with your body. Like you got to give yourself a break. And through the pandemic, I think the humor was super prominent because everything was shitty. Like
Yeah.
everything. It
Yes.
wasn't.
The
It
sky is
wasn't just.
falling, the shit is
Yeah, it
coming.
wasn't
Like, yeah. Yeah.
conversations with a body at that time. It was like people are losing their jobs. People can't pay their bills. People can't. So I think comedy for a lot,
Yep.
and not just for me, but um, comedy became an outlet for a
Yeah.
lot of people. And like I got to have a really cool conversation in downtown Halifax, like just go for a walk with a nurse. And I think sometimes I devalue myself as an entertainer and as a content creator, and I forget that there are really important people in this world who come to my content after a really rough day or
Yeah.
find safety in my faith. And we were downtown and a nurse stopped me and she was like, I just have to tell you, like, you got me through the pandemic.
Oh my
She was like,
gosh.
I saw the worst things
Yeah.
I'd ever seen. But then at the end of the day, I would come home and I'd put on your content and it would help me go to bed so that I could get up the next day and feel good about what I was
Oh,
doing. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I love
I'm telling my
that.
mom this. I'm telling my
Yeah.
fucking
I'm
parents.
I'm telling
I
my mama this.
no,
Yeah.
I have no degrees, but I'll tell you right now, someone who has one likes me.
Yeah.
So how about that?
That's amazing. I was gonna say you have had some incredible experiences in the last what 6 years.
Mhm.
Do you have one that like stands out super prominently? I know the little things like those little nuances of being stopped and like that story about a nurse. I
That's
don't even
incredible.
think about that, but
Yeah.
that's fucking
Yeah.
incredible. Like in comparison to the big huge things that you've done, do you have like a favorite memory of all of this so far?
Oh, I mean, it's all pretty fucking cool.
It's all
Yeah.
Like
pretty fucking cool.
it's genuinely all really, really cool. I think for me, the obviously having conversations with people is super important, but and like understanding your impact. But I think like my favorite memory for me specifically is like as a kid, and you want your parents to be proud of you. You want them to know that what you're doing is like I'm gonna cry, like having an impact on people. And like my parents worked so hard, but they didn't have a lot when they grew up. So like they worked so hard to this is also a funny story. They worked so hard to like give us everything. They like so that we could go to school, so that we could get an education, so that we could do. And then here I am, a university dropout who loses her job 8 years into what she dropped out of university to do, and then becomes a content creator and like tell my parents that on their anniversary dinner, like not the greatest day to choose to do that. I was like, I quit my job. My dad's like, maybe you should keep it. Like, I was like, well,
Maybe. Yeah.
I was like, maybe I should, but I'm like, I'm half ass in this job. I'm half ass in content creating. Like, I feel good doing this. Like, I think that I should jump in with 2 feet. And it's so hard to find tangible. Like, how do you find a tangible for a parent?
Yeah.
Right.
That isn't a promotion or a raise or and obviously all they want from me is health, well-being, being able to take care of myself. And
Yeah.
obviously being a content creator does that. But how do I show them the
Yeah.
impact that I'm having? Yeah, how do you do that? And this is probably like a year into content creating. So this is pretty soon into things. But I'll never forget we were downtown for dinner, me, my mom, my dad, and Scott, and a
Mm.
woman stopped me and she just immediately started crying. And then I'm crying and she's like, I
Oh.
she starts sharing with me her experience with an eating disorder and how her therapist adjusted my content and how she paid
Oh.
somebody thousands of dollars to help her with this and then finds my platform and I've helped her for free. And just we're
Oh,
like
that makes me
having
wanna
this
cry.
conversation and we're like going back and forth. And I'm like, oh, and these are my parents. And meanwhile, my mom and dad are sobbing.
Oh,
sobbing listening to this
oh my
conversation
Oh,
God.
that I'm
that's so
having with a
sweet.
girl. And I think for me that like that's probably one of the most memorable moments for me to be like, this I'm making a difference. Like for them to like tangibly see that like it's not about my sex toy ads. It's not about
Yeah.
my, it's not about like my scooter videos. It's not about just the comedy. Like there are actual people
Yeah.
behind the screen that are listening to the things that I'm saying or living a happier, healthier life
Yep.
because I exist, because you created me, because you've empowered me to do these things. So that was like a pretty impactful moment. And anytime someone tells me their fucking therapist suggests me, actually blows my
That's
mind because I don't
incredible.
even see a therapist regularly.
Yeah.
Obviously, I need to start investing in one. However, they're invested in me, and like
Yeah.
I jokingly it was like, what did I need a degree for?
Right.
Right.
I'm doing their job for
I'm
them.
doing
Yeah.
their
So
job for them
you
for
know,
free
I'm a
99.
resource. But for me, that's really cool
That's
because
incredible.
one, that just validates my
Yeah.
experience and really truly empower everybody to start talking about fucking things.
Yeah.
Because if a therapist who's learned everything about the brain and learned
Right.
everything about our how we work suggests my content to make you feel better about yourself, and I'm a regular everyday person,
Right.
we need to start having conversations with the everyday regular people in our lives.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
if we just started opening up and talking to the people that support us and love us and are there in our lives, we would be a lot healthier mentally and
Yes.
physically. And
Yep.
it doesn't
Yeah.
take it doesn't yes, there's so much value in seeing a therapist, and I'm not saying stop going to your therapist. What I'm saying what I'm saying is if somebody who has gone to school for this sees value in my everyday content and my experience,
Absolutely.
that like there are people, if you can't afford that, there are people in your lives that are living this and doing this,
Yeah.
and that goes back to that curating your experience online to like
Yeah.
support yourself properly. And yeah, so definitely that story. But yeah, anytime somebody
Mm,
tells me that their therapist suggests my content, I'm like,
that's lovely.
That made me cry
That
just
was a
cutting
great
onions.
I didn't know that
I
story.
did not
That's
know
a
that
good one.
story. Thank you for
It made
sharing
her
that.
cry too.
I I you're so vulnerable and
Yeah,
you're
she is.
so genuine and you just want good
Mhm.
in this world and I wish there was a million
Same.
of you,
Boom.
you know?
I really
Like
Absolutely.
do. Like yeah, I don't know. I could go on about it forever. This is the coolest thing that I'll ever do in my entire life.
right.
Like the coolest thing I'll ever do in my entire life. And the fact that it has allowed me to live a bigger, more joyous life for myself and for the people that I love, like the opportunities that being myself has allowed me to do for other people is
Yeah.
just like so humbling. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
never in a million years did I ever think that I would get to show up online, but also be able to pay my bills and
Yeah.
Right.
be able
Right.
Yep.
to support my
You deserve
family
it.
and
Yeah.
to do cool things and to, create cool experiences for the people that I love and the people who have supported me when I literally couldn't pay my bills. Like
Yeah.
Mm,
it's such a new, I don't know, such a new world that we're living in. And like we were out driving the other day and I'm looking this way because he's sitting right here. I looked at him and I was like, does it ever like boggle your mind that we used to live in a life where things felt out of reach? Like
Yeah.
the
oh,
house we wanted or the things we wanted to do. And then now, because we shared our lives with people, we live in a world where nothing feels out of reach for us anymore.
Right.
Like it's just, there's
mm,
obviously, you don't want to talk about, feels like weird to talk about, like obviously paying your bills and making money, but like, if you're going to make money doing something, like this is like the most fulfilling
the
Yeah.
thing
most
in the entire
fulfilling.
in the entire world. And I think it's important to like help people realize that when you find something that you're super passionate about, like regardless of how silly it feels or how untraditional it feels, like there's someone out there who's looking for what
Mm,
you're passionate about. And like
Yeah.
it's been very, very cool, very, very humbling, and I cry often,
I love
You
that.
obviously.
deserve it. You
Yeah.
deserve it.
We always think tears heal everything. Tears are like the most joy, I think.
Mhm.
Like it means you feel things. And if you didn't, like, I don't know, I cry a lot too. We just had our retreat and we had one girl who cried a lot. And it just the way that she could express herself so freely, just like you are, I think is
Mhm.
really, really important and something to like never take for granted
No.
because
And never be ashamed
and
of.
never be ashamed of it
No.
because it's so beautiful
It
and it
is.
means you're loved and it means you're on the right path and you're
Mhm.
doing this awesome shit and like you're changing the world. And that's big and scary and sad and happy and funny and
Squishy.
squishy,
Terrifying.
terrifying. Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yes. But I
Oh,
fucking love it.
terrifying.
So speaking of terrifying, what's next?
Yeah.
What
Oh
can you share
gosh.
that's next anyway?
Me, my goal this year to not say no to anything.
Oh,
Like
Oh,
my goal was to say yes to the things that scared me, which is everything. So like
me too.
I think that that's been really cool. Like I'm at VidCon this year, which I'm super
Oh,
terrified about because it's
yeah.
not a space that I've been in before. So I'm
yeah.
excited about that. I might be starting my own business, which is kind of exciting
Okay.
with like product.
Yeah.
So we're in the works for that, and
Oh my gosh,
obviously
how
that's all I
exciting.
can share, which is
Yeah.
exciting. But there's just there's there's a lot on the go, and I
Good.
mean my goal in for this year specifically is just to get to do as much as I can. I
Yeah.
Yeah.
spend a lot of time not being able to do lots of things, and I just want to create cool experiences for the people that I love and
Mm.
see the world while I'm doing it. And I just got asked to possibly walk in Miami swim this year, so we'll
Dang,
see about that.
girl.
What?
Yeah,
That's
Wow.
huge.
there's some really cool things that are like I'm finally starting to like be able to like I don't know, feel confident enough to like put myself out there so that
Yeah.
I can
Right.
be going places and meeting people and um
If it's not scary, you're not doing it
I
right.
was gonna just say that.
yeah, I mean, and I feel like everything's scary. Like I
Yeah.
feel like there's a level of fear that, I'm trying to like really hone in on that. Like,
Hmm.
is it scary or is it just like new? Is it
New.
New.
scary or is it exciting? Is it so
Yeah.
exciting it
Yeah.
feels scary? And like,
Oh, I
yeah,
love
so
that.
there's lots of things, and just again, our goal this year is to not be home as much as we are away,
Yeah.
honestly. So
Yeah.
Come
like
on down to
the
North Carolina.
Oh my
We'll
God.
welcome you with open arms. You got a
Yeah,
place to
I'm
stay.
sure North Carolina's probably on a list or two over there. So yeah,
Yeah, the cowboy. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm
yeah,
ready. Yeah.
It is
yeah.
beautiful down
So
here. Yeah.
yeah, so it's yeah for obviously like some cool tangible things, but honestly, like for the rest of this year, like we're gonna spend the we try really hard not to travel in July and August in Nova Scotia because this is the best time to
It's
be
the
here.
best
Like
time to
it's
be
Hmm.
the
here.
2 months of the year that keep us living here year round.
Mm.
And we have like country festivals and fun things, and I'm just trying to like live a joyful, fulfilled life and sharing that with people so that they understand that they
Yeah.
can too.
It's
Like so
possible.
that they understand that it's, like I don't have to feel guilty in this
Yeah.
Giving
body. I don't have
permission.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really cool.
That's
Really,
super cool.
really,
Well, we're
really
going to
cool.
be watching you and cheering
And
you
cheering
on
so
the whole
loud.
time.
Cheering so loud.
So,
We want everybody to support you and
yep.
follow you. How can people find you?
Oh, Instagram and TikTok at Alicia Mccarvell. And then Scott and I are on YouTube as the McCarvells. So
Oh,
we're
cool.
starting that up.
Love
I
So we're
that.
love
gonna
that.
be hoping to do some more vlog style stuff, the two of us, and just share a little bit more insight to our banter and our interactions.
It's so
And
good.
Oh,
yeah, so those are the fun places.
Good.
yay. I'm
Can't
so
wait.
excited. Thank you so much for coming on with the body. We know your time is super important.
Yes.
We just really appreciate you being here. And as always, if you like this content and you want to follow What the Body, you can find us on IG, What the Body Pod. And we are also on YouTube at What the Body.
Hmm.
So thank you again.
Thank you,
We
Thank you
Alicia.
for
Tell Scott
having
we said
me.
hey
sending
too.
so
He's
much
like, I
I
love.
don't know
will, and
them.
thank you for having these conversations. Thank
Yes.
you for creating a space that allows people to talk about things that they're not talking about on a regular basis. And I
Absolutely.
don't think you realize how impactful and important that truly is just yet. But
Mm,
this is just the beginning, and there's a lot of people looking for the stuff that you're curating and creating. And obviously, like huge that you're an inclusive like boudoir photographer. Like I think that that's like so empowering and so impactful. And I don't think that I truly realized like the power of my body until I felt sexy, and like the fact
yes.
that you get to give that to people on an everyday basis is really cool. And then for you to be living in a thin body and to be advocating for plus size people the way that you have been, and I see your content, I see your product, I see the thing that you're putting out there is like huge. Like we need people and brands like you to be having these conversations and to be creating the space. And yeah, it's a big deal.
It's a
Thank
big
you. That
deal.
means
Very
a
big
lot.
deal.
That does. That
It
means
means a
more
lot.
than you know.
Hmm.
Also, the under of my boobs has never smelled better than with
Hey,
me.
we fucking love it. I'm telling
Actually,
you.
Yeah. Scott used it the other day. He used the vanilla. Yeah,
Mm,
he used the vanilla.
I
Nice.
love that.
I love the coconut's my favorite, I think so. We were just in Mexico and I was like using lots of like tanning stuff that smelled like coconut. Then I got home, I was like, oh, not the sun, but it'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Good. Well, I'm
amazing.
glad you like it. I'm glad
Oh,
that
Yeah.
Scott's using it too, and
that
that
makes me
makes me
happy.
really happy.
That makes me
Yeah,
so happy.
it's awesome.
Well, like I said, if you're ever in North Carolina, look us up. We'd be happy to show
I
you around.
I totally will.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch. We adore you, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having
Thank
me.
you.
It means
Yep.
a lot.
Of course. Go out and do great things like you are. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.